Hey guys, welcome back to Interesting Video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with a Draven supplementary guide, and today we're going to be talking about Conqueror Draven. So we have gone through Press the Attack / Empowerment Draven in our updated complete guide some time ago, and I still think that PTA is going to be the best rune for Draven, but I do think Conqueror will always have a place for Draven. In fact, even like Lethal Tempo and Conqueror always kind of has a place for Draven if you prefer that kind of play style compared to Press the Attack, which I think is objectively the best rune for Draven. But anyways, let's talk about the build. Now the build pretty much remains the same from the complete guide. You start off with the Gluttonous Greaves for the AD and the Omnivamp. You go into the Bloodthirster, of course, for the stats. The huge amount of AD you get, the physical vamp, and the bonus stats when you're high on health. You go for the IE second item to, of course, get even more AD, and of course you get the bonus crit damage, which is going to give you 50% crit. And when you do crit, of course, you're going to do a lot of extra crit damage. And then, of course, we have Mole Reminder for the Armor Pen and the Grievous Wounds. And here we have Magnetic Blaster for the additional range mostly, but you also get a little bit of attack speed. Now, you can also swap these two items around, if the situation calls for it. And as the last item is going to be a defensive item. So normally it's either going to be GA for the Revive, or, Maw if you're against a heavy magic damage team, or even a Starex for the health as well as the shield. So for the runes, of course, in this case, we're going to go for Conqueror, this being the Conqueror build. Of course, this is going to really do well when you're in long fights. Of course, Brutal because you're Draven and you auto-attack a lot. We, of course, have Giant Slayer, which is going to deal with those high HP enemies. Of course, you can also go for Coup de Grace if you're against all squishies. And, of course, we have Alacrity here for faster attacks because we don't really have any attack speed in our build. I mean, we do have a little bit from BT and we do have a little bit from Blaster, but not a lot. And most Dravens actually like to go for Empowered Attack as their secondary rune. It's very, very aggressive here. You get a little bit of bonus damage on your next auto attack every 8 seconds. This is really, really aggressive. I tried it out. I personally still prefer going for like Bone Plating or Hex Slash. But I did go for the Empowered Attack in this gameplay just to test it out and see if it's good. I think it's alright, but personally I rather have a defensive option. And of course for the spells you want to go for Flash together with Exhaust. But with all that said, let's move on to talking about our gameplay. Okay, so now moving on into the gameplay. Now, just very briefly, of course, Draven does prefer to have engaged supports. Of course, they can catch people early game, engage for him, and start fights. But of course, he can still work with, other supports. Like, he does still work with, champions like Yuumi, Lulu, or, other enchanters like Nami, etc. But yeah. So here, straight off, we're into a fight. Pyke gets a hook in onto the Nami. We're just basically trading auto attacks at this point. Of course, Draven is one of the strongest level 1 and early level ADCs in the game. So you definitely don't want to be fighting a Draven level 1. Or level 2 for that matter, unless you do have something specific. Like for example, if you're playing Kalista with an engaged support, let's say Kalista Leona, you can go in on Draven level 2 and try to get a kill on him, but not too many lanes can really go in on Draven level 2 because of how strong he really is. So also you would have seen already from the gameplay, from the title of the video that we're going to be basically kind of feeding, and that's kind of not going to be ideal for Draven. But also you can see from the title that we do end up carrying the game eventually. So how does it happen? Well, stay tuned to find out. So here we go, super aggressive onto the Draven. Now honestly I made a mistake here because I didn't actually ward the bush and I actually ended up dying. And you can see Lucian was actually 1 HP here, and he used all of his summoner spells. If I had just warded the bush there and gotten one more auto attack onto the Lucian instead of onto the Pyke, I would have actually gotten the kill there. I would have gotten the cash in, I would have gotten the first blood. But you can see that, I mess up mechanically basically and end up dying to the Lucian, which is not a good look. Both enemy bot laners end up getting a kill. However, I kind of salvaged the situation because Lucian uses his dash into the bush, so I am able to eventually get the kill onto him and tank like a whole minion wave and lose like half my HP, but it's all good because we still ended up getting the kill. So yeah, it's gonna be a pretty rough early game. We're gonna basically lose a lot of stacks and cop a lot of deaths like what you saw here. We ended up dying and then getting a kill, which meant that we lose half of our stacks and we don't get the full value of the cash in, which is definitely situations that you don't want as Draven. You always want to get the kill and cash in before you die, or even better yet, just don't die at all and just cash in instead. But of course, we all know that that's in an ideal world, and in reality, that doesn't of course always happen. So you will have those games that you do end up behind in the early game, and you know, a lot of people have that kind of misconception that if you're behind on in the early game as Draven, the game is over. Yes, the game is going to be difficult, but the game is not necessarily over. Like, Draven is still an ADC, and he still does do, you know, good DPS in the mid to late game so long as you scale and you're not completely, you know, feeding the enemy team. It's just like any other ADC. So here we try to go a little bit aggressive again. Now I think one of the main issues here is that Lucian is one of those ADCs that does have a lot of damage in the early game, that can fight Draven. You can see here we try to go in on him again. We pretty much miss our ulti and we just end up dying here. Mundo is now trying to clean up the kill onto the Lucian, but doesn't look like he's gonna get it. Nunu now running his way in, engages onto the Nami. Nami gets rooted and stunned and dies, and now Mundo is getting chased, gets Pyke ulted, and yeah, our whole team just ends up dying as well, which is just a disaster overall. For not just me, but for my team as well. So it's definitely going very, very rough at this stage of the game, as you guys can see. But, you know, we'll just have to salvage it. Now, the ironic thing about Draven is that even though he is that kind of champion that you want to get ahead and cash in, he's also technically a really good comeback champion, which is what most people don't actually think about at all. Now, let's think about this. So if you are playing Draven, and if you don't die, of course, we did die a couple of times here, but if you don't die and you're simply just stacking your axes, and let's say you have like 100, 200 axes, you know, things like that. Sometimes I even got like 300 axes, stacks, sorry, not axes, but stacks of League of Draven before without cashing in. When you eventually do get that huge cash in, the amount of gold you get is going to be like, you know, an insane amount of gold, and it's going to single-handedly let you come back into the game. So that is just something to take note of. Now here again, we end up just kind of, I wouldn't even say we are trying to go in there. I would just say we're getting caught out, overextended, and the enemy team started a fight with us, which forces us into a fight, and we end up dying again. So now, taking stock of the situation, I'm now 1-3, 4 minutes into the game as a Draven. I'm 1k gold behind Lucian, and like almost 2k gold behind the Pyke. Ziggs now comes in to try to clean up, ends up dying to the Pyke instead, so now I'm actually 2k gold behind the Pyke. So yeah, it's kind of a complete disaster. Like, my goal plus Nami's goal is like Pyke's goal. That's how big of a disaster this lane is at the moment. So huge goal deficit for you know, me and Nami for that matter. And there's a huge lead on the side of the enemy team. So how are we gonna, you know, fix the situation? Well, obviously, step 1 is we want to stop dying. Easier said than done, of course. But yeah, step 2, we want to keep on catching our axes and trying to get to a point where we are able to get, you know, a huge cash in at some point before we die. Now, if we have to in for the cash in, so be it. But we definitely want to get a huge cash in at some point to try to recoup some of the losses that we sustained here. So here Mundo is doing the dragon. Looks like it's going to be a dragon for Herald trade, because I'm assuming the enemy jungler is on the Herald at the moment. We do secure the dragon, and we're going to actually just do the skull crab since we're here. Nunu does get the Herald as we expected. We grab ourselves the skull crab. A fight is kind of breaking out here in the mid lane, or now it's going to be the river. Huge knockout from Nunu and from Nami for that matter. I flash away from the Nunu snowball. Pyke flashes in for the stun, but we are able to actually ult him and get the kill. And we do get not only the shutdown, but of course also the cash. It's a huge gold swing for me there. 700 gold shutdown plus a little bit of a cash in there. Really huge. You can see now I'm at like about 5k gold, which is only like 400 gold behind Lucian. So that's kind of bringing me back into the game and allowing me to complete my Bloodthirster. So first item completed for me. Lucian did go for a Executioner's Calling first to cut healing, which I think is not the worst idea, but is kind of a, I wouldn't say waste, but it is not really where you want to spend your gold in the early game, because you want to rush crit items as quickly as you can and not waste time with things like Executioner's Calling. Although I will say, of course, it is really effective against Nami and even myself, because Lucian, of course, goes for Bloodthirster first item, which is going to give him a lot of healing. So here Pyke is, I believe, at the top lane, if I saw correctly. I think he showed up on the minimap very briefly. So here, I actually just walk in, get an auto attack to get the tower plate, and now we're going to just shove in the minion wave. Lucian actually gets caught here, and we're just slowly running him down. Pyke ends up just showing back up, so we are going to have to kind of run away a little bit, but we did manage to pop Lucian's summon spells again. Now, both junglers are, not both junglers actually, Ziggs and the enemy jungler are now here. Ahri is here as well. I think this is looking like a very dicey situation. So we do need to be a bit cautious. Pyke hooks me in. Ahri, does a little damage. Pyke executes me. Not going too well here, and execution goes onto Nami as well, and then onto the Ziggs. Pyke picks up a triple kill, and Pyke is 8-1 at this point in time. Of course, especially because of his ult, he is sharing the goal with his team. So yeah, huge lead for the enemy team. You can see they have a 6k goal lead overall. Majority of it's honestly coming from the Pyke. Like, Pyke has 4k goal lead over the Nami, and of course he's been sharing goal with the Lucian, who has a decent lead over me as well. Whereas on the rest of the map, my team actually has leads. Like, for example, Seth has a lead against Yasuo. Seth has like 3 kills, in fact, and you know, things like that. So it's definitely not a doomed game, but we are 2-5 at the moment as a Draven, and that's definitely not where you want to find yourself. But yeah, so we're gonna try our best to get back in the groove. When we get into teamfights, there is a possibility that we will do pretty well, simply due to the fact that we have Seth and Mundo for frontline. Whereas the enemy team doesn't have a very strong frontline. The best they kind of have is like Nunu, and he's not really the best frontline because he's more so like an engager than really someone you want to stand there and tank damage for you. So I am hopeful that in team fights we might be able to just be untouched and just DPS from behind. And you know, even though we're not that fed, you know, if Draven just DPSs for a long time overall, like, or any ADC for that matter, you know, it's gonna be good. Like, the only person who can really reach us is really like an Ahri flank, which is very unlikely in solo queue, or like if no one blocks Nunu. Speaking of which, we get a shutdown to the Pyke again. We get him caught, and now we're chasing onto the Lucian. Yeah, flash forward, finish the kill onto him. So huge goal injection from me again. Now I'm kind of on par in terms of goal with Lucian. So yeah, as you can see, we are getting back into the game. Here we're trying to chase down the Nunu. Ahri does end up dying as well. So Nunu has to... He actually didn't have to flash away, but he chooses to flash away, which is great. Yeah. So only really an Ahri flank can reach me, but that's unlikely. Now Nunu could reach me with Snowball if no one else is in front of me or no one blocks for me, so there is a risk. And of course Pyke could hook me as well, but with frontline that should be difficult. And Yasuo can dash to the back, but really unlikely also. So overall, I think, you know, that's the reason why I look at the team comps and I see that, you know, team fights probably, you know, my team has a stronger team fight comp just because of the good front line. You know, we have an Enchanter, and we also have Ziggs and Draven to deal the 2 types of damage, whereas the enemy team, pretty squishy overall, but of course a lot of damage as a result. So we have to see how the team fights go, but I definitely do favor my team's team comp personally. I think having tanks is always better than having no tanks. Speaking of which, Nunu is currently doing the dragon. I'm trying to get myself into the pit, but I'm walking into the wall. Here, Yasuo gets caught. We finish off the kill with an axe. Our team actually steals the dragon, and Nunu goes down as well. Now here, we're on the chase for Ahri, but we kind of give up the chase. Now I notice Ziggs is alone, and I know that Ahri has gone in with the ult on him. So I'm just waiting in the bush. Ahri comes too close, and I just auto attack her for the kill. Huge damage from that auto attack, and yeah. So now, out of nowhere, you can see out of just a couple of messy fights, we now actually have more gold than the Pyke and more gold than anyone on the enemy team. So that's why I'm really saying that yeah, like, you know, Draven, you know, when he's behind, he is not that good. But if we look at it, Pyke is 8-2, and I'm 7-5, and I have more gold than him. And Pyke also has like a goal sharing mechanic, of course, which of course gives gold to his allies, not himself. But of course with Draven's goal mechanic with the League of Draven stacks, you can get back into games as well, which is something that mind-bogglingly people don't really consider. They always think like Draven is just a champion to get ahead with, but they never really think that Draven is the kind of champion that you can, you know, come back from behind with. Which of course Draven doesn't scale the best, but it definitely, you know, you can still come back as a Draven. Now here, I kind of messed up because I don't catch my axes properly, and if I did, I would have killed both Pyke and Lucian. I tossed out the random ulti to try to hit them, but unfortunately it does not actually hit them. So we're just going to destroy the mid lane tower here. Continue on pushing the mid lane, and maybe we can even go for another tower, perhaps. Yeah, so we're going to start damaging the tower. Pyke comes in, gets a double stun, ultis the Ziggs, and ends up getting a kill on me as well. So definitely a huge overextension from me and the Ziggs. You know, that's no good. But yeah, we're definitely now, even though we just died there, we're definitely in prime position to actually carry the game here, because we're not 9-6, not 6-9. We're not 9-6. We're not 9-6. We have 3 full items, and we have the most gold in the game. So we're kind of back where we need to be, which is ahead of the curve, which is kind of where Draven wants to be. And yeah, I will say that it is kind of surprising that we did manage to kind of get ourselves fed, despite, you know, being pretty far behind in the early game. It's not that common you find these sorts of situations where you were behind and then you get fed. You know, but of course these do happen from time to time, and I'm definitely not going to complain about it in the slightest. But yeah, you can't expect to, you know, have this particular situation every time. Here we're going to quickly grab this blue buff, because Draven does use a lot of mana if you spam his W too much. So here, with the blue buff, this gives me a license to you know, spam my W. Now, enemy team is chasing into us, but Mundo is actually coming in on the flank. Pyke chases too far, ends up getting killed by me, and Nami Wave hits pretty much everybody. We flash in, getting the kill onto the Ahri. We're not chasing onto the rest of them. Nunu is rooting himself. We get the kill onto him, and we basically wipe the entire enemy team at this point. So here, we're pick up the 12-minute Baron, which is going to pretty much just melt here at this point. I'm just going to quickly go ahead and push in the mid wave. Yasuo is already alive, because he did die prior to this kind of huge fight here. But we are going to quickly pick up the minion wave in mid. Our team is kind of resetting a little bit. Yasuo is now here trying to defend. He does pop the wind wall already, so no wind wall for future you know, purposes. Doesn't ult me even though he gets the knockout, which is really wise, because that would have obviously killed him. Now the enemy team has respawned, so we don't really want to mess around with them anymore. We're actually going to back. Ziggs nearly gets caught by Yasuo and Pyke, ends up getting hooked in by the Pyke. Pyke flashes in, gets the stun, and he does manage to barely escape by the skin of his teeth. We are dealing a lot of decent DPS. Look at that damage. Double auto attack nearly kills the Lucian. Lucian survives by the skin of his teeth. I nearly actually end up dying here off of the Pyke hook. And I do end up surviving though, and Yasuo comes in with the ulti at long last, but by then his team has already evacuated the premises and allows me to pick up the kills. Now 3 of them are dead, only Ahri and Pyke are alive, and we do have a wave in mid, and we have Baron of course. So this is the golden opportunity to push with the Baron and try to end the game. So Pyke and Ahri trying their best to defend. Of course, we get the top lane inhib as well. We're just quickly destroying the wave with our auto attacks, and now we're starting to hit the Nexus itself. Nexus shield is active, but you can see we shred through the shield, and now we're finally going to actually get the Nexus itself. And of course, I'm going to leave you guys with the stats as usual. So thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.